Ninamani. My name's Joanne O'Connor and I'm the Clinical Manager of the Enhanced Support Team based within Galarnatapa Youth Justice Centre in South Australia. Data from the Youth Justice Disability Screening Project, as well as research more broadly within the youth justice space, indicates that young people involved with the justice system experience high rates of developmental adversity and mental health difficulties. And we also know that the population includes an overrepresentation of young people with Aboriginal ancestry. Given the demographics of our population, we know that our young people have unique cultural needs that need to be addressed alongside developmental needs. Youth justice clients also experience a range of neurodevelopmental differences, including intellectual disability, autism spectrum disorder, the impacts of neurodevelopmental trauma, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, as well as communication and sensory difficulties that might contribute to behaviours of concern. My colleagues will speak further about this. Notably, these developmental conditions may not have been diagnosed before they've reached the youth justice system. The Enhanced Support Team offers youth justice in South Australia an opportunity to take innovative approaches responding to behaviours of concern within the custodial environment. Behaviours of concern include acts of harm against the self or others, as well as property damage. Behaviours of concern are known to stem from a combination of individual, relational and environmental factors. And the information I've just mentioned in terms of the presentations of our young people highlight the need for our system to be responsive to an array of individual differences. We see it as an opportunity to incorporate clinical perspectives into operational processes and practices. So in terms of what's different about the Enhanced Support Team, a need was identified to integrate allied health support within the custodial environment. Our goal is to offer multidisciplinary practice support within a trauma-informed and disability-responsive manner when it comes to responding to behaviours of concern. Our aim is to support the workforce's understanding of complex client presentations and, over time, to reduce the need for restrictive practices within the custodial environment. The Enhanced Support Team uses trauma-informed care principles and a positive behaviour support framework that enables us to work collaboratively alongside youth workers, behaviour support officers and other stakeholders within the centre. And ultimately we aim to develop shared language and understanding of behaviours of concern within Galarnatapa Youth Justice Centre. A key aspect of the Enhanced Support Team's work is behaviour support plans. So through completing a thorough functional behavioural analysis and formulation, basically in order to map out how we respond to the young person at the centre, we also would offer ongoing consultation with operational staff, not only to inform the plan itself, but to offer active and timely implementation support when it comes to responding to behaviours of concern in the centre environment. Individualised behaviour support plans enable us to provide tailored and developmentally informed behaviour response strategies that are both proactive and reactive in nature. We also aim to assist in shaping more adaptive behaviours within the centre environment and support reflective practice throughout the process. Ultimately, our aim is to offer an intensive systemic intervention.
Hello, I'm Larissa Ashton and this is Melissa Saliba. We're senior speech pathologists who work in youth justice in South Australia. As speech pathologists in youth justice, we work to advocate for young people with communication difficulties to have better access to information. There's a lot of research, both nationally and internationally, showing that there's a strong incidence of language disorder in young people within the youth justice system. In 2019, our team conducted the Disability Screening Assessment Project and found that 9 out of 10 young people were at risk of a language disorder. A language disorder means a young person has difficulty with their understanding and their expressive language, which obviously impacts on their ability to access information within the youth justice process. A seminal paper by Winstanley and colleagues last year found that language disorder was a strong predictor of recidivism, and that young people with a language disorder were more than twice as likely to reoffend.
Young people in youth justice are frequently shown written information that surpasses their literacy and language abilities. Take this, for example. This is a typical bail agreement, and even though you can't see the details, you can see that it's full of written language. The words are complex and the sentence structures are complex. It's very cluttered with words, and there are lots of capitalisations in there as well. All of these things make it difficult for young people to understand, even difficult for a layperson to understand sometimes. And particularly if you have a language disorder, it's going to be even harder. Over the last 18 months or so, Larissa and I have worked closely with our colleagues in Youth Justice to develop client interfacing documentation that's more easily accessible for young people. Following increased interest in our work and the recommendations from the Disability Screening Assessment Project, we have decided to develop a strategy and an actual formal project to look at the client interfacing documentation and make that documentation more accessible using a format called Easy English. This project is called the Enhancing Communication Access Project. Both Larissa and I were trained in using the Easy English style, which was designed by a speech pathologist and is the intention behind it is to develop written documentation that has a high picture to words ratio and has simpler language that is very understandable. A key objective of the Enhancing Communication Access project is to improve the accessibility of written and verbal information to young people by providing a toolkit of potential templates for our youth justice workers to use with young people.
With Youth Justice leadership, we've collectively identified about 30 documents to modify. We've prioritised those and started with 4 of the highest priority ones to modify. We've worked collectively with our communications team to collaborate and create modified documents which are accessible for young people but also fit within the organisational expectations of documents. You saw the bail agreement that Melissa showed before, so here's an example of our mandate conditions and how these documents are starting to look. Next steps for us is consulting with cultural advisors and also, really importantly, consulting with young people, the people that are going to be using the documents, to see that they're communication accessible and that the choice of pictures and the choice of words are meaningful and powerful to them. This project isn't just about providing a modified document, it's about supporting case managers and other youth justice staff to modify the way they communicate with young people. We find these documents often serve as a script to support staff to explain things in an easy way. We've also been working closely with case managers and other youth justice staff to explain things to young people in a way that they can understand. We've had some really positive preliminary feedback that young people are understanding their mandate conditions better and are showing better compliance, which has led to less breaches and hopefully less time in custody for young people.
My name's Luke Francis. I'm the Senior Occupational Therapist with Youth Justice in South Australia. I'm to talk about the sensory modulation project that we're currently working on in Youth Justice. The project itself came from a piece of work that was done back in 2019 to look at screening for disability-related needs in the custodial population here in Adelaide. One of the key findings of that project was that around about a third of the population at the time had significant sensory processing needs. So the project that we're working on at the moment was developed as a result of that, with the intention of meeting the needs of the young people with sensory processing difficulties and also looking at upskilling the staff who work with those young people to identify and then be able to respond to those needs as well. So the project at the moment is about halfway through. It's running the length of 2021. And we are currently in the process of completing a youth engagement sub-project called Photo Voice. Photo Voice is a visual research methodology which is intended to gather some information from the young people relating to day-to-day life in custody. The Photo Voice at the moment, the process that we're working through at the moment is providing cameras to young people and then instructing them or helping them to take photos of the things that they do like about life in the centre and the things that they don't like about life in the centre. We're about 9 young people through that process at the moment. Unfortunately, COVID and some other challenges have got in the way for that, but we're still progressing with that, and we hope to at least double the number of participants before we finish up. And so far there's a lot of very interesting information from the young people regarding the environmental and the social factors that sort of influence day-to-day life. The next step for the project after that is to develop an environmental audit. We're working in partnership with 2 academics from UniSA. One's helping with the photo voice and another helping with the audit development, to look at how the physical, social and institutional environments of the custodial centre are potentially impacting the young people. Once we've got the results from the audit and the photo voice sub-projects, we'll then be looking at developing a sensory modulation framework to essentially look at the needs of young people, but sensory processing is essentially the ability of individuals to take stimuli around them, both stimuli from inside the body regarding movement and balance, or also sensory stimuli regarding noise, sound, touch, those sorts of things as well. Sensory modulation is the ability to be able to essentially modulate or to control the amount of sensory processing input that people are receiving at any one time. Young people or adults who are affected by sensory processing difficulties can find that they're either overstimulated or understimulated depending on what input they're receiving from the environment around them. And so we can try and adapt the environment and to adapt the young person's skills and ability to be able to self-regulate to hopefully be able to help them process sensory stimuli so that it's not negatively influencing their functioning or their behaviour. So the purpose of the framework within the custodial environment is to look at adaptations of the physical environment as to how we can help the young people, strategies for staff in terms of upskilling and education for staff, and then also protocols for assessment and intervention for young people with potentially sensory processing needs. Once we've developed the framework itself, when we, again working with our partners from University of South Australia, we'll then look to obviously implement that framework into the centre. We'll also be looking at developing staff education programs and protocols for new staff and existing staff, and also looking at how occupational therapists from Youth Justice, like myself and my colleague, and also child and adolescent mental health system, and also the education system can be able to help young people with sensory processing needs. Unfortunately, or potentially fortunately, we don't often have enough time with young people within the custodial setting to implement long-term interventions. So therefore, the bulk of the framework that we're developing will be to look at making the environment within custody as responsive as possible for young people's needs.